My dear students of 11th Medical, and today in your botany we are going to take up the anatomy of Dicotyledones and Monocotyledon stem. And previously we have discussed the anatomy of the dicot and the monocot roots, and today we will take up the anatomy of dicot and monocot stem. And you can view the transverse section of a typical dicotyledonous stem. This is it, the full transverse section of the dicot stem, and this is the section of, rather the transverse section taken in a part of a typical dicot stem. Now, the transverse section of a typical dicot stem, when viewed under a microscope, it reveals the following types of the tissues. Rather, the outermost you can view here is the epidermis. It is the outermost protective layer of the stem, covered with a thin layer of cuticle. This is the outermost epidermis. It may bear trichomes, or known as the epidermal here, and a few stomata if it is young and green. And the cells arranged in multiple layers between the epidermis and the pericycle constitute the cortex. You may have the view of this. Between epidermis and pericycle lies the cortex tissue that is comprised of the outer hypodermis. The cortex rather consists of three subzones. The outer hypodermis, it consists of a few layers of colonchymate cells just below the epidermis and provides mechanical strength to the young stem. These are the colonchymate cells just lying below the epidermis, and then it is followed by cortical layers below a hypodermis consists of rounded, thin-walled parenchymatous cells with conspicuous intercellular spaces. This means that the parenchymatous cells are having the intercellular spaces which are quite visible. The innermost layer of the cortex is called the endodermis. You may have the view of the endodermis here. This is the endodermis. And then the cells of the endodermis are rich in starch grains, and the layer is also referred to as the starch sheath. And then the pericycle is present on the inner side of the endodermis and above the phloem in the form of a semi-lunar patches of sclerenchyma. In between the vascular bundles, there are a few layers of radially placed parenchymatous cells which constitute the medullary rays. You may have the view of these tissues revealed by the transverse section of a typical dicot stem. And then a large number of vascular bundles are arranged in a ring in dicot stems, and the ring arrangement of the vascular bundles is a characteristic feature of the dicot stem. And each vascular bundle is conjoint, open, and with enlarged protoxylem. A large number of rounded parenchymatous cells with large intercellular spaces which occupy the central portion of the stem constitute the pith. And this is it. Pith at the bottom with protoxylem and metaxylem, and then the phloem, and in between lies the cambium. And this is the transverse section of a typical dicot stem. And now the monocot stem. The monocot stem has a sclerenchymatous hypodermis, a large number of scattered vascular bundles, each surrounded by a sclerenchymatous bundle sheath, and a large conspicuous parenchymatous ground tissue. Here is the transverse section of the monocot stem, a typical monocot stem, with epidermis on the outer side, and then the hypodermis, and then the scattered vascular bundles and the ground tissue. This is a part of the transverse section when viewed under high power of the microscope. Epidermis, hypodermis, and followed by the ground tissue with vascular bundles scattered all over this transverse section of this monocot stem. And then the vascular bundles are conjoint and closed. Peripheral vascular bundles are generally smaller than the centrally located ones. And the phloem parenchyma is absent, and water-containing cavities are present within the vascular bundles. And this is the view, again the view of the monocot, transverse section of the monocot stem. Thanks and have a nice day.